now. Just making sure it goes. Yep, it's up, and it will be posted on the NEWRA.org website. Tonight we have Representative Aaron Michaelwitz. Aaron, your mic is open. He's first up to speak to us, but I want to just give you a couple of quick updates. We have two voting items tonight, a liquor license transfer request for Nando Trattoria on Hanover Street and a proposed condominium development at 25 Atlantic Ave. So that everyone has time to ask questions, please keep your questions tight. I want to give everybody a chance to have a voice tonight. I know there's a lot of questions and a lot of concerns on all sides. And when you speak, you're going to have to give us your name and your address. People who ask questions are, first up will be abutters, then we'll do members, and then we'll do residents. But to speak, I want to remind everybody, you need to be a resident of the North End. So you've got to give us your address. I'll open the mics when it's time to do Q&A. But I'm going to ask everybody to please take the high road. I know it's a real stressful time for everybody, but let's be respectful to each other. One item I do want to bring up, the city, we were just notified about this yesterday, about what could potentially become a dire traffic situation on State Street. The city is looking at making State Street one traffic lane and one bike lane. So many of the residents and businesses are really concerned about access, traffic backing up onto the Surface Artery Road, along the Greenway, into the neighborhoods. We're going to send an email out to everyone about that and with some information about it. And there's also a petition and some contact info. So look for that from us over the weekend. We'll get that out to you. So I want to let you know about that. And actually, I could probably put something up real quick as we started on time. Hold on, let me share my screen and you can see it. Just so you have an idea what this is all about. You know, that's, if there's one lane, you all know where that is, just past Faneuil Hall. It'll be really tight. There'll be a lot of traffic. There'll be cars everywhere on the side streets backing up. So anyway, we'll get you some information about that so you can make your voices heard on that. That would be great. And you know, I know we have a lot to get to tonight, so I don't want to delay on all of that. John Romano, are you on? Let me open your mic because I know John is going to give us a little update. John, I'm opening your mic about outdoor dining. There's going to be a meeting in 2 weeks. John, you're up.
Thank you, everyone. Cheryl, thank you so much. John Romano from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. I hope everyone's doing well. I just wanted to take a quick second and say that in 2 weeks from yesterday, so January 27th at 6 p.m., we will be having the North End's community meeting for outdoor seating. We all know that this pilot program will be happening again this year, but this is the chance for the North End community to be able to hear how, you know, the current set of outdoor seating rules, regulations, and what that might look like in the North End as of now is, and then be able to hear the voices of North End residents, business owners, and those in the community to hear questions, comments, concerns, and really be able to adapt this program for the North End to make it fit within our neighborhood here. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to email me. I'll put my email in the chat. I'll also put the link to the meeting in the chat, as well as it's going to be shared. Cheryl, I think you had already shared it on your social media.
I did. I put it up on Facebook. We could send an email blast out to everybody on that too, so that people have the link.
Thank you. And then if anyone needs it as well, I'll be putting it in my newsletter. It will be going out via email, and I'll have it as well. So thank you so much, Cheryl.
Sure. Yeah, we're going to try to put a lot of this stuff up on our website because now we don't have North End Waterfront anymore in Matt Conti. So we need to share information amongst ourselves and so that everybody is aware of what's going on in the neighborhood. I would like to introduce our state rep, Aaron Michaelwitz, who is the chairman of the House Ways and Means. He has lots to update us on with the budget, legislative initiatives, COVID relief, and there'll be plenty of time for everyone to ask questions as well. Aaron?
Thank you, Cheryl, and thank you for giving me the time to say hello and update everyone on some of the ongoings at Beacon Hill and what we're looking forward to over the next couple months here with the session getting restarted or the new session starting. It has been a pretty busy couple weeks here. In particular, we had the end of our legislative session, which actually was Monday and Tuesday of last week. because where typically we would be ending the session in July, but because of COVID, we extended it through the remainder of the calendar year and into the when the new session would be, or the new legislative calendar would start, which was Wednesday. So we had a frenzy at the end of the legislative session, as you can imagine, and then turned around and got sworn in for a new legislative session on Wednesday. Also had a turnover in the speakership. A week before that, we had a new speaker be voted in. Representative Ron Mariano from Quincy is our new speaker. He was previously the majority leader. And I've served with Ron, obviously, as my time here in the legislature, but been in leadership with him over the last couple of years in particular. I'm very excited about the new speakership and new fresh ideas and new opportunities here. And I think the fact that we got a lot done at the end of the session shows, in the only week's time that he was there as speaker, we're trying to find new ways to work with our partners in the Senate and with the governor's office as well to make sure we get more legislation done quicker and faster. Because the legislature is not known for its speediness. We all know that, and deliberation is very important, but trying to do things better and fresher and quicker, I think is obviously always the goal for us. We did end in a flurry over the last couple of days. There was a number of bills that got passed on top of overriding the governor's vetoes on the budget. As you can remember from what we talked about before, the budget was pushed back into the fall, and just the timeline of the House and the Senate doing their work and it going to the governor. And then by the time he actually sent back vetoes and us overriding the vetoes, it ended up being basically right up to the end of the last day of session. We ended up overriding 140 different vetoes that the governor sent back to us. It was everything that we did. It was a total of about $150 million in some small amounts of money that would go to smaller things, like maybe even like the amount of money the park rangers are making at the State House or across the state, to much larger pieces of dollar amounts, to like a $50 million reserve for COVID student support systems that we had passed, both the House and the Senate had passed, to give more money to cities and towns to be able to provide services, whether they were in-person learning or remote learning for schools, for school districts across the Commonwealth. It was a pretty big initiative for us, and he vetoed that. We overrode the veto and sent it back to him. We also overrode his veto on the Roe Act, which was contained in the budget. The pro-choice, the abortion rights proceedings that we put into the budget this past back in November, which would do two things. One, would allow third trimester abortions to take place if the doctor deems it to be a health risk to not just the baby, but to the woman, the pregnant woman. And then also allowing 16 and 17-year-olds to access abortion rights, which they currently do not. And we are one of the only states in New England that does not do that. So as much as we're believed to be a liberal bastion in comparison to our neighbors, this was one area where we were a little bit behind on the ticker. And for many of you that know my history, my father was an OBGYN. My parents actually, I came to find this out during this discussion of the Roe Act. My parents actually, their second date was at a rally to protest a pro-life convention that was taking place at the Heinz. And this is back in 1975. Pro-choice rights and women's health rights have been part of my DNA, in essence of where I come from and from the work that my dad did all those years, starting at the health center back in the 80s. And so this was one that I know is can be very controversial, but for me, it was a very easy decision to make in terms of where I stood on the issue. So that's another issue that we dealt with through the budget, but was more policy driven. We also landed on a final piece on the police reform bill with the governor signing that piece. This was not one we had to override a veto. He did send back some amendments for the original bill that we sent him to create new training and certification standards for police officers across the entire Commonwealth. and setting a civilian-run board to make the final determinations on certification, decertification, and training for police officers. We're one of the only states in the country that does not have this type of board, but we will become one of the first states in the country to have it be civilian-run. That will take effect later in 2021. We worked with the governor's office. We worked with, it was a bipartisan effort, very, very difficult, very controversial, but a bipartisan effort to get a bill done. And the governor did sign that bill in late December. We also did a number, I'm looking at my list because we have a lot here. We also did a number of bills related to climate resiliency, a bill that the governor just actually vetoed less than an hour ago. And since the legislative session has started, new legislative session has started, we cannot override that veto. But we have committed, the new speaker came out yesterday and committed that we will take this issue up first thing, resend it to the governor, and make him have to veto it again, and we'll deal with the determinations of that as it comes. But this was creating a climate roadmap through 2050 to get net zero emission limits, as well as a 5-year roadmap plans on the emission limits. It was also adding the offshore wind procurement from the state, which is I've talked about before, is going to be we are going to become a big resource of clean energy through offshore wind. We have one of the best resources in the country to do so. This is obviously going to be something that we continue to push forward. And the current presidential administration, or the administration in Washington, has blocked a number of opportunities dealing with that through federal regulations. But we're hopeful that with the new administration, we will see those doors open up, and you will start to see some real impacts related to offshore wind in the growth of that industry here in Massachusetts. And so this bill also adds into that as well. We also created an environmental justice standards that folks, developers, and many others will have to live by when deciding how to proceed on projects. And I represent one of those environmental justice districts or areas because of all the congestion that we face. Well, not as much now during COVID, but pre-COVID and hopefully beyond COVID. This is obviously a heavy congested area, not only underneath us with the tunnels and the trains, but obviously with the cars. But then also in the air, because we, even though we do not abut Logan Airport, we certainly get our impacts of flight patterns that fly around us or fly by us. So we are an environmental justice district, and hopefully we will benefit from that. Now, this will have to go back through the process in the new legislative session, and I'm looking forward to doing that quickly. We also did a major transportation bond bill and a major major economic development bill. That bonded a lot of money to both, a number of industries that we hope will be part of the recovery that we're up against here from the pandemic and from the economic fallout. One particular piece in that economic development bill that I'm very proud of is capping third-party delivery commissions that these Uber Eats and Grubhubs and DoorDashes can charge our local restaurants. Some of these apps have taken well advantage of our restaurants during these difficult times and have been charging them up to 30% of commission, making it virtually impossible for our restaurants to make some money off of this discussion. And so we're going to cap it at 15%. Sometimes we've seen some of them doing about up to 30%. We're going to cap it at 15%. That's going to start immediately. So this will hopefully save some money, especially while takeout and more delivery obviously becomes more important during these difficult months here and during the end of, hopefully the back nine of COVID. This will hopefully allow our restaurants to be able to survive a little bit better, because obviously while the summer did provide more opportunities for our restaurants, the winter has become very desolate and very difficult for many of them. So those are a number of the pieces that are in there. There are a number of other bills that we passed related to craft breweries, related to a commission on the discussion of the seal, the Commonwealth seal and motto, to reanalyze that and to see exactly what is the best path forward in terms of our seal and our motto. We also did bills on protecting children and families and firefighters from harmful flame retardants. The certain chemicals that are in products, we're banning them to help protect particularly our children in some of the instances that they deal with. We also did a bill related to sexual violence on higher education campuses that will hopefully lead to safer and transparent college campuses by anonymously surveying students about their experiences with, in dealing with sexual misconduct on campus. Students would have access to this information. This has been a long fight through, for many of our students. Some of them are obviously graduated at this point, but in terms of creating better transparency for students to feel safer in their environment, this is going to create a roadmap to do that. We also authorized a home rule petition from the city of Boston on that the mayor was a big part of, and the mayor signed on giving additional resources for affordable housing and job training by leveraging developers. I think it was called the IDP, the linkage, or IDK, I can't remember exactly. I think, John, you might remember that more extensively. I know it's called the linkage bill. And so the governor did sign that. So we're very excited about that. And so there was a number of other bills that we dealt with, but we're heading into a new legislative session now. As the chair of Ways and Means, I'm starting to get that budget process going. Even though we just finished the other one, I got on a regular timeline. The hope is that the governor will file a new budget at the end of the month, at the end of January. We are right now negotiating a consensus revenue number, and the revenues have been a lot better than we expected. Things have continue to improve from a revenue standpoint, although the pandemic hasn't slowed down. And in fact, it's only gotten worse over the months here. Our revenues have actually been relatively strong considering the circumstances. In fact, December, our revenues were 8.8% higher in December of 2020 than they were in December of 2019, which makes people it's unbelievable, to say the least, that that's the case. In particular, because our sales tax is down tremendously. We're still at under about 30% under from where we were, but other tax revenues have been pretty strong. In fact, obviously above to get that. But I was actually in helping our small businesses, working with the governor's office. They announced a $668 million program through the Mass Growth Capital Corporation, and we actually had a press conference today at Saraceno's with the governor, lieutenant governor, and Senator Boncory to roll out the first $70 million of this. And Saraceno's actually received a $75,000 grant as part of that first $70 million. And so we were there to highlight that. A lot of restaurants, a lot of small businesses have applied. And there will be there is still an application process. If anybody knows of any small businesses, I think Patrick from my office is going to put up the application link. So if you want to take a look at how to, and it's right there in the chat. If you want to take a look at how to get these small business grants, we welcome everyone to apply. Like I said, $70 million of it was allocated today. We have close to another $600 million to allocate. So there is money there for small businesses, particularly ones that have been drastically affected by the pandemic. And obviously in the North End, that means a lot of restaurants that have been dealing with this. This was money that was allocated through the CARES Act, through the CARES Act fund that we were able to move some of with our increased revenues. We were able to take some of the money out of the CARES Act fund that was initially allocated and move it into a small business grant program. We're hopeful that a number of other small businesses will be able to get that. I'm very lucky because I represent, even though everyone thinks I represent downtown Boston and thinks that that's like the main place for tall buildings and bigger business, but because of the neighborhoods I represent with North End, Chinatown, South End, I represent the most small businesses out of anybody in the state, and that showed in this first round of grants, where actually over $4 million actually went to my district. And when you consider that there's 160 of us in the House of Representatives and 4 million of the 70 is going to my district, that's a pretty good number. I don't think that's because I'm the chair of Ways and Means. I think that's because of actually the amount of small businesses that actually applied already. And so I encourage everyone to let everyone know, our small businesses, let them know that there's money is here to be applied for. I guess lastly, before I'll take questions, I know we are saddened that NorthEndWaterfront.com is no longer updating regularly or doing anything like it used to, and it's very sad. And Matt Conti worked so hard for so many years, and I think he deserves a break. I'm very proud of him, and I'm very proud of the work that we all did together in terms of getting the information out there. I mean, he provided information and made us a more informative neighborhood. I think we have to find other new ways to kind of pick up that slack. And so from my perspective, I want to make sure that you know that I do a website. I mean, I have my website, and I do a newsletter. And so I offer everyone to, go on my website. It's aaronforrep.com, and sign up for the newsletter. We're going to try to do it regularly, and to make sure that you're aware of what we're working on continuously, and the things that are going on, whether they're in the neighborhood or up in Beacon Hill. So Cheryl, I appreciate the opportunity to say a few words, and I look forward to any questions or comments.
Okay, so I'll open mic, so people just raise your hand, but raise your hand on Zoom. If you raise your hand on the screen, I won't be able to see it unless somebody texts me. I see one. I only see one hand up so far. Kathy's iPad. Hold on, Kathy, I'm unmuting you. There you go. It's open.
Thank you, Cheryl. And thank you, Aaron, for everything that you do for Massachusetts and the neighborhood. Sounds like you've been very busy, and especially for the small businesses and restaurants in the North End. That's important for our local economy. Also wanted to mention with Commercial Wharf that we've been served with yet another RDA by the Boston Yacht Haven, and legal fees continue and are mounting in a bad economy. I know that we've been working on the legislation for quite some time, and you admittedly said in your opening remarks that the legislature is not speedy. However, didn't know what the status was, what you might be able to do to help us in that regard.
Well, I know we've had conversations with DEP. We've had, and I feel that they've been relatively productive in the sense that we're getting a sense of what they need to get this done, and what they feel is an appropriate solution. I don't necessarily agree with everything that they've put on the table or have had conversations with, but at least we're in a place where we know where our guardrails are. Where I don't think before we had any idea. I'm going to file the legislation again, for this coming session. Again, as a placeholder for the break glass in case of emergency piece. I hold it, in a sense over, I don't say hold it over the heads, but I hold it in sense that that this is a necessity if we need to go there. If talks decide to break down, then we will have to proceed as quickly as we possibly can with that. But there's still, I'm still hopeful that there can be a resolution that doesn't require legislation, because I think that would be the cleanest version to do it. But I put my hands in my constituents in terms of what's the best way to proceed.
Do you have any idea on timeline of how much longer it might be before some things might be resolved? I mean, it's been going on for such a long time.
I don't want to give you a definitive timeline, because I don't want to tell you something then it not come true or not be accurate. I think this is part of the process, and I sympathize and understand your frustrations related to the legal fees. And I'm going to keep pushing and prodding. I'll be perfectly candid. Like the last couple of weeks have just been a little crazy related to all those things I just mentioned. So I will try to re-engage and try to prod a little bit more as we go forward.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Does other folks have questions? I don't see any hands raised. Does anyone see a hand raised in the screen that I don't see? No one has any more questions? Wow.
Don't be shy.
I know, I was gonna say that people always have so many questions.
I think Joanne was raising her hand.
Okay,
Joanne
hold on. Joanne Hayes Rhines. Joanne, you are unmuted. I'm trying to unmute you. Joanne, you have to click. I'm clicking on your mic to open it. There you go. You're all set. You're open.
Thanks for noticing me, Aaron. Do you have any update on security for the State House, considering that all 50 states have been warned about what may happen?
Yeah, the speaker, the Senate president, and the governor put out a joint statement a couple days ago related to this, related to security. I think you don't want to, I don't think they want to divulge too much because they don't want to tell people exactly, where they're focusing on, from a security standpoint. But I've always felt safe at the State House. I was there on last Wednesday when the Capitol was being destroyed. I didn't feel unsafe at the moment. I think I think they're going to be vigilant about the safety measures. I don't think you're having the National Guard sleeping in the State House like you saw at the Capitol last week or a couple of days ago. But the National Guard is going to be implemented, for the next couple of weeks here for safety concerns, and in particular on Inauguration Day. We live in Massachusetts. It is a little different temperature for a lot of reasons here than it is in other parts of the country. I'm hopeful that will continue to bear fruit throughout this next couple of weeks here.
Thank you, and be safe.
Thank you.
Christine.
Hey, thanks, Cheryl, and thanks, Aaron. Thanks for the link to your website and newsletter sign up. I used to go to your coffee meetings back when you had those. Do you have any plans to organize any kind of online get-togethers?
Yeah, so I was talking about this with some of my folks the last couple of days here. We may try to do some town halls, like some virtual town halls, and maybe try to make them a little bit oriented to specific subjects. A little different than the coffee hours, but they'll all be district related in some respects, or have a district kind of twist to them. But I think we want to do something that will be a little bit of a subject oriented kind of conversation. A lot of it would probably be centered around the recovery that we're facing. I think that dialogue is going to be important here. I don't think we have all the answers on that, and I think we want to look towards folks to have to come up with creative solutions on some of the recovery aspects of what we're facing right now.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Aaron, have you talked to any companies that are letting you know when they're going to start opening up or bringing more people back? Are they looking to expand? I mean, there's a lot of talk about empty buildings, people not coming back into the city. Have you heard anything you can share with us? Are companies going to come back soon?
I don't know what in some respects, I think they're taking it on a period basis where they're saying, okay, now we're not going to do till the end of March or not till the end of May. That's what I've heard from a number of companies. Some companies I think are going to come back. I think every company is looking at it a little bit differently. Some companies are saying when they do come back, it's going to be we're only gonna do 3 days a week, or we're gonna do off and on situations. It's going to be a little while before we come back, and in some respects, for some companies, it may never be the same, just because of the way we can operate now through Zoom and whatnot. I mean, I miss being in the Nazaro Center and having these conversations directly with everyone instead of doing it over this way. But this is the way the world is now, and I think for a lot of companies, they're gonna look at trying to do it as a way to maybe save money and save commercial space. I think it's a real discussion we're gonna have about the future of commercial space in Boston because of where we are right now and where that's heading.
Yeah, most definitely.
And of course, a lot of it's related to the vaccine distribution and rolling that out. And I know we're in the midst of phase 1 right now with some starts and stops related to it. But I'm hopeful that we will, by something like a May or something like that, we'll be fully implementing of the vaccine rollout.
That would be great. That people can get out of their houses.
Yeah.
And off of Zoom. Does anyone else have any questions? Come on, nothing? All right, well, I don't see any other hands. I'm looking. I'm just scrolling through to see if anybody has a hand up, but I don't see anything. All right, well, I guess we're good. Thank you very much. It was great to see you. Stay safe. Big week
You
next
too.
week.
I'll stick around for a little bit. Listen in.
Okay, that's great. Next up is Ryan Gazda, who is representing Nando Trattoria. This is a voting item. They are, Ryan, let me unmute, but they are transferring a liquor license, and I'll let Ryan just give us a quick update because they've A lot of people have heard this before. Hang on, guys, I'm just looking for him. There you go. Ryan, I just clicked you to open. Yeah, Ryan, why don't you tell us, just give us an overview and then we'll vote. And folks, I'll put the email address in. I'm sorry, I just see a question. Somebody just put it in the chat. Hold on, Aaron, I see Tom Schiavone. While I open up Tom, I will look for the other person. Sorry, Ryan, hang on a sec.
No problem.
I do not see Tom Schiavone on here. And McDowell said no. Okay, I see a hand up. Yeah, oh, there one. Sorry, Tom, you're at the top. The Zoom thing is still, you have to unclick, I hit mute. There you go, Tom.
Okay, it's actually
There.
Mary.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, this is just a housekeeping thing for voting purposes. I've got a bunch of people that only have a first name and I can't tell who they are. So if I could just quickly read through this list, and if anybody is on this list and you are a member, if you could just put it on the chat or something so I know to mark you present. The names I've got are Trish, Pam, Fernando, Pamela, Sherry, Joseph, Catherine, Kevin. Okay, that's it. So if any of those people are members and you want to be marked present, just put your name on the chat so I'll know who you are. Thanks very much.
Great.
Oh, and also one more thing. If you want to keep your voting in place and you have not paid your dues, please do so. You can go to the NEWRA website and do that online.
Terrific. Kathy, do you have a question? I'm going to open your mic. Kathy McDonald. This is just really kind of crazy. I can't even find you on here. Kathy, if you have a question, will you put it in the chat? Because I'm looking for you on here and I don't see you. Okay. Some people are, okay, there are hands up. Jen, you're texting me. Tell me who, because I can't see everybody. I can't. Jen, I'm going to open your mic. You can help me here. This is, we got a lot of people on tonight, almost 100 people. You're open, your mic's
No,
open.
it's okay. I was just telling you like that certain people were just giving their names for attendance.
Okay.
Mary asked them to, so it's not necessarily questions.
Yeah, I'm getting text and private chat, so I'm trying to keep it all straight. Okay. I'm going to move on now. Ryan, your mic is open. Why don't you give us a quick overview about Nando Trattoria? I know they're moving a liquor license, and you can tell us about their hours of operation and all of that.
Thanks, Cheryl. Again, my name is Ryan Gosda. I work at McDermott Quilty Miller, and as Cheryl mentioned, I represent Nando 393 Hanover Inc. Mira Giangregorio Fioricano, who I believe is on the call with us. She is the owner and president of that corporation, and she is applying to transfer an all alcohol license to the new restaurant Nando's Trattoria at 393 Hanover Street. It will be a full service Italian restaurant with approximately 42 seats on the ground floor. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the site, this was the location of the former Green Cross Pharmacy that Mira's family had operated, I believe, for nearly 50 years. And it recently closed down last year, and it's been rezoned for restaurant use, so that's what we're looking to do now. Mira will be the sole owner and manager of record of the restaurant, and her husband Sal will be the executive chef. She herself has been involved in the community for a while. She was a teacher at St. John's School and a youth worker at the Nazaro Center. And as I mentioned, her family's been the operator of the local pharmacy at that location for several decades. So she's excited to stay involved in the community and open her first restaurant at the same location that her family's held and operated for many years. I do have a floor plan here that I'll just bring up.
I will, there you go. You should be able to share.
So if you can see that, that's floor plan. First floor here, dining area with a small bar. Basement is basically just for preparation and storage. So it's been fully built out. We're anticipating a hearing date, I believe, February 3rd before the licensing board. But other than that, we're happy to answer any questions you may have. I'm not sure if you mentioned it, Cheryl, but this is coming from the Zuma restaurant in Faneuil Hall, and they did have a 2 a.m. closing hour associated with the liquor license, but we're looking for a 1 a.m. closing hour Monday through Saturday, I believe. I don't have my notes in front of me, excuse me. I believe it's 1 a.m. Friday and Saturday, and the balance of the week, 12 a.m. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Yeah, I have your notes. Does anyone have any questions for Ryan, the owners? I'm looking to see if there's any hands up. Nope. So I need a motion for a vote. Jen, your mic's open. You want to do a motion? Your mic was open. Jen, I opened your mic. Mary,
I move that we vote to either support or oppose the project.
I'm just going to second it. So if you would email your vote on this project, I just put it in the chat, but I'll do it again. It's newra.board@gmail.com. We'll tally the votes up, and it's, oh, I made a typo. newra.board@gmail.com. We'll tally the votes up, and we'll get an email out to everybody with the voting results from tonight. All right, we're good.
Thanks, Cheryl. Thank you, everybody.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so now we are going to move over to 25 Atlantic Ave. And I need to open up a couple of mics. Dennis, Dennis Quilty, I'm going to open your mic up. I understand you are going to kick this off. You should be able to open your mic, Dennis.
Got it. Thank you, Cheryl.
Sure. Richard, I'm going to open your mic. Richard Walsh, who's the developer, I'm going to open your mic as well because you should be able to respond to questions. So Richard, I clicked on you. I'm going to share my screens so you can put up your project. They're going to give us an overview. For those of you who aren't aware of this project, it's a 5-story, 6-unit residential building. The property is in a multifamily residential subdistrict. Zoning violations arise under Article 32 of the Boston Zoning Code, Section 4, Groundwater Conservation Overlay District applicability, and Article 54, Section 8, roof structure restrictions. With respect to the latter, the ISD refusal letter notes the height of the proposed new construction exceeds the prior height of an existing building, and Section 18 specifies the height of a building existing as of June 24th, 1984. The refusal letter also notes that the projections located above the public sidewalk would acquire approval of the Department of Public Works. That's something that everybody got from us as part of the meeting notice. So Dennis, take it away.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thanks for having us. Appreciate coming back tonight. I would like to ask you also to unmute Matthew Frank, who's the project architect.
Sure.
Show some.
Yep. Matthew, you should be open. Anybody else?
Howard Mosher should be on.
Yep.
From Vanessa VHP. Richard,
Howard,
obviously, and attorney Chris Muse, if you could unmute him as well. I think that's who we need.
yeah, there it is. Okay, you're all open, or at least I clicked on all of you, so you need to click on your end. Perfect. And remember, your mics are open.
Thank you. Again, thank you, Cheryl, for having us. I'll be very, very brief here and turn it over to Richard and the team to go through the plans. This is the third, I guess, fourth meeting we've had, on the project. And you did correctly cite the zoning issues, if you will. One is groundwater. The other is 5418, which is a very particular citation in the North End zoning district. I do want to make it clear to your, the membership and those on the call this evening that we have no dimensional zoning violations. That is to say, the lot size, width, rear yard, side yard, front yard, FAR, all those things are compliant. It is the issue of replacing the one-story circular building you can see on the plan with anything larger that gives us cause to have to go through the zoning process, with the exception of the groundwater. So we are here to present and hopefully answer any of your questions. And if I may introduce the property owner, Richard Walsh, to give you his opening statement, and we'll go right to Matthew to show us the plans, and then we will be happy to answer any questions. Richard?
Dennis, thank you very much. Cheryl, thank you very much. And Aaron, I wanted to thank you. You're a great supporter of the North End. It was great to hear from you tonight too. For those of you who haven't heard from me before, some of you have, I'm the president of Walsh Brothers Construction Company. We are a 120-year-old firm, Boston-based, started by my great-grandfather in 1901. And for the last just over 20 years, our headquarters has been at 210 Commercial Street, which is right in the middle of that picture, the 6th building right across from the site in question. For a number of years, we rented parking spaces down on that site. And I think you all know the Lavanderia dry cleaner used to use the building on the right as a distribution point. 4.5 years ago or so, it's probably almost 5 years now, the site became available. It was owned by two gentlemen. One his name was Gary Peedy, but the other guy's name escapes me. And he mentioned to me that the space was available, and my office up in the corner office on 6, I used to look down on that site, and the light bulb went off on top of my head, and I said to myself, I'm going to go home to my wife, Jennifer. I had lived in the North End for several years on North Street before I was married, and I knew that both my wife and I very much loved the North End. And I went home and I said, what do you say we build a home in the North End? And I said, we can buy this piece of land here. And we both decided very enthusiastically that we wanted to do that, move here with my wife and my 2 sons and raise our family and make this our primary residence. As we believed, we designed a building, as Dennis said, that was 100% compliant with the North End waterfront zoning package as we understood it. And it would contain 6 3-bedroom units, one which we would take, and it would have parking off street. And I think it's important too, I remember very clearly looking out that window down below that this corner was in a state of blight. I parked the building, not the Lavanderia building, but the building on the left. The roof was caving in. At one point, there was a homeless person that was actually living in there with a shopping cart. Every morning it would smell fresh of urine, and it was dirty, and there were hypodermic needles, and it was not a pretty situation. A lot of people used to tell me that walking home at night was kind of a scary spot to walk by there. So the idea of one living there, building a zoning compliant, beautiful building, and kind of taking care of a blighted corner. One other thing I'll mention too, as you look at that picture, there's a big curb cut in front of the door where Lavanderia is. And as part of our project, we will take that curb cut away, which will make a much safer situation out on Commercial Street, or excuse me, Atlantic Ave. Also, it very much so, it was asked at the last meeting about short-term rentals. This is not intended for short-term rentals, and I will not allow that to happen. I intend this to be a building to raise families in, and I've received a lot of support and a lot of discussion with people around the North End that they very much, a 3-bedroom unit is rare, and excuse me, and that to raise families was something that people really wanted. I've been building buildings for 120 years, so I know how to do that. And I'm talking about building a beautiful, high quality building with a concrete frame structure, very high-end masonry materials, and just a what I believe is something that is really going to enhance and improve the neighborhood. With that, I will turn it over now to Matt to give you a little better view of the new building, the new proposed building.
Thanks, Richard. So my name is Matt Frankie. This is a bird's eye view of the proposed project, and just for orientation, I know everybody probably knows where we're talking about, but Atlantic Avenue is running diagonally across the bottom of the screen here. The north side is at the bottom of your screen. At the corner, you can see Commercial Street curving around the proposed project. There are a couple landmarks like Lewis Wharf at the bottom center of your screen, the Prince Building. Richard's office is directly behind the proposed project. And now I'm just going to drop down to the street, same orientation. So we're still on the north side, looking south along Atlantic Avenue. The proposed project, as previously stated, is 5 stories. The first story is all uninhabitable spaces, 6 parking spaces, and other spaces, support spaces such as like trash and fire pump, mechanical, electrical, those sort of spaces, and of course, an elevator lobby and stairs. The main entrance being proposed basically right at the center of the building, of the facade on Atlantic Avenue. The first floor is being proposed as granite, and the second, third, and fourth as Indiana limestone. As Richard mentioned, all just the most penultimate quality materials. The top floor, the 5th floor, is a mansard with standing seam aluminum roofing. And now just walk across Atlantic Avenue. And now we're looking south on Commercial Street. Being a triangular building, we don't really have a back elevation. So these materials are wrapping around, the same quality of design and materials just wrap around all 3 sides of this building. There's really no back side to this building. You can see the first garage door here on Commercial Street. I'll show you the other 2 in a moment. And now I'll just walk down to Commercial Street. I'm going to go kind of stand on the corner down here. So now we're kind of looking north. This is north. I was standing over here before. This is the 3rd elevation, and also the 2 other garage doors that equals 3. You'll see here the setback from the Prince Building, and also this doubles as the passageway from Commercial Street to Atlantic Avenue and to the Harbor Walk and to the water. So now I'm going to go back to Atlantic Avenue, the complete opposite view. Richard's office in the background, Prince Building on the left. And this is the pass-through that will be open to the public. One view we haven't seen yet is looking north on Atlantic Avenue. The water directly to my right. And then lastly, we are proposing a common roof deck, which since the last meeting we have beautified and want to heavily vegetate.
Yeah, if I can jump in, I know that one of the points for tonight were to give you understand the feedback that we got in the first meeting and kind of give you some updates from what we heard from you. So elaborating on the roof deck, as I mentioned the last time, it's always been my intention to make the roof deck, absolutely the most lovely and beautiful feature of this building. So you'll see it a little more enhanced here. It's a green roof. And it's considered, right at this point, it's available to the unit owners and the families. But just one comment I just feel very strongly about. I mean, to the point of giving you a personal guarantee that there's not going to be any nuisance behavior that's going to take place on this roof. It's going to be a very private area. Someone mentioned before, how about Walsh Park? Well, there's my version of Walsh Park right there, but we feel very strongly about that. The idea is, as Matt was mentioning, the proximity of this building compared to the other buildings, including that space you see right in front of you. We decided to take that analysis a little further, and I'll pass it to Howard Mosier, our engineer from VHB, and he can talk about that for a minute.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Howard Mosier. I work with VHB in Boston. And pursuant to Richard's comments, and as a follow-up to previous comments, we undertook an analysis of the kind of distances prevalent in the north end from principal building face to principal building face. So Matt's going to just zoom in on 25 Atlantic. What you're seeing here is an aerial photo of the entire north end, and 25 Atlantic is shown in blue. And as indicated here, the distance from the face of the building to face of the building is approximately 50 feet. And we took illustrative examples up and down the streets of the north end, and just predominantly anything that had a distance of less than 50 feet is indicated in red, which is pretty much the entirety of the interior of the north end. And then anything with black text is a distance greater than 50. So the spacing of the building from principal plane to principal plane is consistent with a lot of that, or exceeds, greatly exceeds much of that prevalent within north end.
Thank you, Howard. Now, the next comment I wanted to address was, we talked about streetscape before we get to this. It is the intent that, particularly on the Atlantic Street side, that the sidewalk is up to 22 feet deep. And we're going to be carefully put a row of trees. The building will take the responsibility of all the maintenance of all the areas of the sidewalk, including the snow removal, and make it a very safe place to pass by. I know there was concern about lighting from the first floor. We've taken that very seriously, both with translucent windows. We intend to keep it lit, very well lit, all the way around on the three sides, I guess, if you will, if it's a triangle. And even the question came up about retail on the first floor. We have not ruled that out. That's something that we're willing to talk about at the nose or at a certain area of the building to even have retail, but to create a vibrant, friendly, beautiful sidewalk. Right, that shot right there, that sidewalk is 22 feet deep. That's almost like a park, if you will. We really think that is an enhancement and improvement to the neighborhood. Then we were asked about a shadow study. And yes, when you are proposing and preparing for a permit, you do, and we are completing a shadow study. I wanted to give you a look at a few shots from that shadow study. When you go to the BPDA, you have to show them certain times of year, and they like to see it in the morning and at noon and later in the afternoon. I thought specifically these 6 shots would be very useful to show you tonight. So what you see in front of you right now is at March 20th, as they call the vernal equinox, at 9 a.m. And you see the shadow that the building does cast. Now we'll bounce to 12 noon, and you see that shadow reside, and you see as the sun rises, that shadow no longer touches the buildings across the street and commercial street whatsoever. Now the next time of year, this is June 20th in the summer solstice. This is again at 9 a.m. and you see a certain amount of shadow being cast by the building, but it doesn't even get to the buildings on the other side. And then we go to noon and you see almost no shadow as the sun is very high, high in the sky looking down direct. And then we go to our third time of the year, which is December, when the sun is at its lowest, and this is at 9 a.m. And then you can see a shadow being cast that does, to a certain extent, hit the buildings on the other side. And then we come to 12 noon. And I must say that as you look at this, and there's a lot of different versions of it, but the Prince building is probably the building that casts the most significant shadowing in this entire area or this neighborhood. Now, lastly, I want to get to architecture. There were a number of comments brought up about the architecture of the building, that it is not contextual, that there's nothing like it in the North End. And we decided to look into that a little bit more further. First of all, as Matt said, it is built very high quality concrete structure, but with masonry materials. And if you remember what I said before, when I used to look out my office window, I'd look at Lewis Wharf, which had 4 stories of granite and then a 2-story mansard roof. I really tried to almost steal that detail and pull it across the street with the same 4 stories of stone material, granite at the base, and a mansard roof. It's almost exactly the same detail, but only with a 1-story mansard roof. Then the question of the shape of the building. We call it triangular. In the architectural world, we call it a flat iron building. And the fact of the matter is we looked around the North End and there are flat iron buildings all over the North End. Here's a few of them. This is at Battery Wharf. As you see that building come at you in its triangular shape, that's the nose that's directly in front of you. Next slide. This is at Commercial and Hanover Street. Again, triangular flat iron building with the nose coming right at you again. This is as a very similar angle. North Street hits Commercial, just like Commercial hits Atlantic back at our site. There you see a triangular building with the nose at the front. Here we are at Snow and Prince Street, a 5-story building, triangular flat iron shape with the nose protruding right at you. This is my favorite one at my cousin's place on Hanover Street next to the fire station. As you look, Charter comes in at that same angle into Hanover Street, and you see a triangular flat iron building right in front of you, masonry material in the same place. So again, it's always been my intention and that of my wife to create a beautiful building, a jewel box of a building, if you will, that in many ways we want it to look like it was, that it had almost always been there. We believe that it was nothing but an enhancement and an improvement to the neighborhood, and that would be a great addition to 25 Atlantic Ave. So with that, I will pass it over to Dennis to wrap up a couple of additional items.
I'm sorry, did you pass over to me? I'm sorry,
Yes.
I thought we were just going to go to questions at this point.
Well, I think you were going to maybe bring up 50 Fleet.
Well, I mean, it's something I presume we're going to get questions about 5418. And 5418 is a very unusual part of the zoning code, which applies only to this neighborhood. And people at various of the other meetings have indicated that, you know, why would we be asking for relief, and what you know, why would you not be in compliance, et cetera. If you saw the original site, the excuse me, the circular odd shaped laundry building, and there was a gas station on the site for a period of time. I think, as Richard fairly described it, as a blighted area. In any event, the neighborhood, actually within a stone's throw, the building we're looking at in this photo, was actually the recipient of relief under 5418. Perhaps, I think it was maybe less than 10 years ago. The exactly what you see in this picture is a 5-story building which replaced a 1.5-story restaurant and excuse me, I'm sorry, I've got this horrible cough. 1.5-story restaurant and bar at the site. And the citation for this, after a series of changes, the one citation when this went to the Board of Appeal, I think in 2001, I don't have it, excuse me, was 5418. That is to say, the building that it replaced was only 1.5 stories. Therefore, they had to go through the very same process that we're going through now. And as you can only imagine, the issues would have been the same for some of the neighboring buildings in terms of potential change in shadowing, air, light, et cetera. We just bring this up because it literally is it's almost in the front yard of the building we're now seeking to propose. So it's not out of the ordinary that relief is granted. And in fact, many of the other buildings around our site, including the Prince Building and including 220 Commercial, have gone to the Board of Appeal to increase the height of their buildings. The Prince Building added some 22 feet to its building way back when. And 220 Commercial sought zoning relief and was granted zoning relief to change from commercial to residential, and then to add a floor on the top of the building and create a roof deck on top of that. It was cited at the time under a different section, but for the very same thing that we're here for today, which is rooftop restrictions. So we're just hoping people understand that these things occur, and city neighborhoods often see buildings built on vacant lots and smaller lots, et cetera, et cetera. So we're only hoping to say that what we're proposing is a reasonable addition, if you will, a reasonable use of the parcel, and will be a positive for the community in terms of replacing the vacancy and the former blight with residential units of a family size in a beautiful building, which has parking on site and other street amenities around it. So again, understanding that we were going to get questions in these areas, we wanted to make sure that people had the benefit of this history, if you will. So thank you very much for that.
Okay, so with that, I think we can take questions.
Okay, so questions. A couple of ground rules. Let's all just be respectful to each other. I am going to call on abutters first. If you are not an abutter, you're not coming up right away. When you speak, you give us your name and give us your address. You need to live in the North End, not work in the North End. Okay, you can't be a business owner or work at a business. If you're a business owner, that's one thing. You've got real estate here, but you have to live here. So I just want to put those ground rules out first, because we've got a lot of people that want to speak, and I'm getting a lot of direct messages and a lot of texts. So the first person that I recognized was Eileen Jacobs, because she went in first. Eileen Jacobs, I gotta find you. Sorry guys, this is a lot of people here. Maybe it's under Mitchell. Actually, let me open Jen's mic and let her go first, and then I'll look for you. Eileen. Okay, Jen, you're open.
Hi. First, I just have a question. Are all the units the same size, and about what square footage are they?
There are, okay, I can answer.
Like, what's the average square footage, let's say?
There are 4 flats that are approximately just over 1,800 feet. Okay, there you go. And then 2 duplexes at 2,300 feet.
Okay. Are we doing questions and or comments from abutters, or is it all?
Let's do questions.
Okay, that was my question. I also have comments, but I can hold until other questions are answered.
Okay, that would be great. Thanks. Jacobs, I have 2 of you here. Richard Jacobs, you're on here twice, so I'm unmuting both of your lines for Eileen and Richard Jacobs. I know you guys are abutters. Give us your address, please.
My address is 220 Commercial Street.
Thank you.
On the 3rd floor. And I guess my question, although I have comments I would like to make, and I have some pictures I would like to show. I don't understand why you think that 5418 you should receive a variance from, given that when those of us who bought our homes, in my case 22 years ago, I relied on that to protect my interest.
So, well, the answer, I thank you very much for the question. First of all, it's not a variance. This is a conditional use. It is not a variance. We can only suggest that, as indicated in the Fleet Street property we just showed everyone, that 5418 is part of the zoning code, but there are mechanisms to allow properties to be built regardless of that. And that's all we're trying to do, is to say, okay, we think this on balance is a positive proposal for the neighborhood. And, you know, it's a project that we think does as much as possible to alleviate the negative impacts on the buildings around it. And, you know, it's just, obviously, Mr. Walsh, as the property owner, has the right to make an application. And obviously, we're here tonight because there's a process we have to go through. So I mean, zoning relief is granted all over the city, in every neighborhood, subject to the Board of Appeals, subject to community input. But, you know, our zoning code allows for appeals and allows for people to present their case and allows for people to succeed if they can present an appropriate case. So it's all we're trying to do, but it is not a variance in any respect. It is a conditional use permit similar to the one that was granted down the street at the Fleet Street property. You know, actually, the relief granted to your building was a variance, but this one is a conditional use permit.
Eileen?
Yes,
Are you good? Do you have a follow-up question?
no, but I would like the opportunity to comment and to
Okay, we're
show
gonna
the
get back
impact.
to comments. I want to get the questions done first.
Right.
Chris Tewitt, I know you have a question. I'm going to open your mic. Everybody just be patient with me here. Okay, Chris, you're open. And then I got a couple of other people that are asking to ask questions. Santa Sarno, I need to know if you live here, but we'll come to you. Go ahead, Chris, you go first. And then
I'm sorry, yes. Hi, my name is Chris Tewitt, and I own a unit at 220 Commercial Street on the first floor, which is zoned residential and commercial. My question is, I have two questions. One is, I'm not quite sure, Mr. Walsh, if it was you or one of your colleagues mentioned your corner office there at 210 Commercial Street. What is the height of that office? Or what is the height of your building?
It's, here you go.
Okay.
76 feet,
Okay.
approximately.
Okay. So that your office, I'm just trying to understand where your office is, the top left corner?
Yeah, Richard's office is in the background of this image here, if you can see my cursor.
Okay. So you essentially look over the building that you're proposing. My next question is regarding the rooftop deck. Are there different zoning requirements or building codes that require a direct elevator access head house to a common roof deck as opposed to a private roof deck?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So, I believe that previously, but the last time I heard this story was that Mr. Walsh was going to occupy the top floor. And maybe at that time it was a private roof deck. I'm not sure. Maybe I could be mistaken, but if it's a common, the elevator goes directly to the roof. Am I correct?
Yeah, the elevator goes through the entire building, including to the roof. Yes.
So that structure that's up there, can you give us the dimensions of that elevator head house for the access to the roof deck?
Matt, do we have that on plan?
Yeah, I can provide that. Just bear with me for.
So just to clarify, I think my question is there a requirement that the elevator has to go to the roof deck directly? Or can it stop at the 5th floor and the residents use the staircase to go to the roof deck?
Yeah, if I could answer that. The elevators have to go to all habitable levels. So yes, the elevator does have to go to the roof deck, and you do need 2 means of egress as well.
And the intention was, I think, stated tonight, and I know at the earlier meetings, was that the roof deck is proposed to be common for each of the units.
Okay. That answers my question.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I know there's a lot of hands up, but I've been putting in the chat kind of the order that I'm seeing questions. The next person who had a question is Santa Sarno. Santa, hold on, I'm gonna open your mic. But I need to know that you live in the North End. So hang on a second. Santa, your mic is open. You should be able to click on it and open it. Okay, Santa, please tell us where you live in the North End.
Okay, I'm at 145 Commercial Street. I'm the property manager there.
Do you live here? You live here, Santa?
I was born and brought up in the North End all my life.
Do you live here? I'm sorry, Santa, you have to tell us whether or not you live here.
Yes, I do live here, and I've lived here all my life. And I
Great.
live here now at 145 Commercial.
Perfect, thank you.
I don't really have I don't have a question. I have comments, if that's okay.
Okay, well, if you make it quick, because right now we're in the question section, but go ahead since we called.
Okay, I just want to say that I think it would be a great enhancement to the community. And being a native of the area, I know the site, and I will tell you that it would be a great enhancement. And having 3-bedroom units would also be a great asset. 3-bedroom unit condos. We do rentals in my property, and we don't have any 3 bedrooms, and people do call all the time and ask for them. And I just thought that I would interject that.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm looking for my list. Next up, John McDonald. John, I'm going to open your mic. 1 second. Okay, your mic is open, John.
Hey, thanks, Cheryl. John McDonald, 63 Atlantic Avenue. Could you tell us, is there a loading zone or dock required for this development? And also, will there be any parking spaces that are lost on Commercial?
Parking spaces that are what? I didn't hear that, sir. I'm sorry.
Parking spaces on Commercial. Will the street lose any parking spaces? And is the building required to have a loading zone or dock, and where would that go?
Loading area is in the space between this building and the Prince building. That space, by the way, is entirely owned by Mr. Walsh. There is an easement granted to the Prince building for access and egress in this area, but the space is entirely owned by Mr. Walsh. The loading for the building will happen just to the right of where the cursor is now in our building. And to my knowledge, no parking spaces are taken from the street for this proposal. In fact, I think with the reduction of curb cuts, additional parking spaces would be more likely than not to be included on the street for street parking.
Sorry, Mr. Quilty, just to clarify, parking spots on Commercial.
I can be very specific about this. We are adding parking spaces to Commercial Street, adding additional residential parking spaces. We are not taking any, we are adding. It's between 2 and 3, and we'll be nailing that down. In all of the buildings parking, of course, the unit parking is off street.
John? Nope. John, you're muted. John, you all of a sudden got muted.
No, I want to be respectful of your time, so I
No,
just.
it's okay. I just didn't know if you had a follow-up question, that's all. Okay. Judy Smith, you were up next, and then I've got a couple other people. I see your hands up and we'll get to you. And there's a couple of questions on the chat that I'm going to read too. So Judy, you're up.
Mine is a comment instead of a question.
And Judy, please tell me where you live.
I live at 63 Atlantic Avenue. I've been there for 48 years. And I want to say that the building that used to be there was designed by Tim Anderson, a very famous architect, made out of the same materials as the buildings around it. And it was a beautiful building. Lavandria took it over and they didn't let one go, but I never saw a hypodermic needle or anything like that. I feel that this one is so solid. It looks like a medieval fortress. You note that on the Prince building, Tim Anderson cut into the first floor all the way around the building to put greenery in and make it feel less like a fortress. And I feel this is taking away all the light and air from the people behind it and the people beside it. And it is definitely not, it's only an improvement over the anchor fence and black macadam that we've had for the past couple of years put in by Mr. Walsh. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we get to a couple more questions, there's some stuff in chat that I want to read. Why is the roof considered habitable space? No one will live there. A roof deck is not habitable floor, and the elevator does not have to go to the roof. You guys somebody want to take those and talk about the roof deck and floor?
I mean, unfortunately, if the roof deck is to be common, I think the elevator is a necessary component of that, so that people on the first floor, for example, can get up to the roof. Excuse me. And the reason, I apologize, I'm sorry. But I think that's the answer, is if it's a common roof deck, the people on the lower floors need to get access to it as well.
Dave Kubiak, I'm going to open your mic so that you can follow up. Dave, you're on.
Well, I'm not an expert on this, but my opinion is no. Your opinion is you need an elevator to go to the roof and that it's allowed. My opinion is no. And we've seen this, for the 25 years I've been involved, there have been plenty of roof decks that are common use, and there's no elevator. These elevators cause tremendous impacts, view impacts, because not only do you have the elevator car itself above the roof line, but then you have the mechanicals on top of that as well. And best example of that is at 16 Moon Street, which caused tremendous impacts for a lot of folks. So I believe the elevator does not have to go to the roof, and somebody's going to have to show me otherwise in writing.
Matt, can you address this, please?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really want to speak to someone's opinion of building code, as I'm a building code professional. So the building code requires elevators to access roof decks, and that elevator also has to be gurney sized. So if somebody were to have a medical emergency, you could be on the roof, you could be in your kitchen, you could be down in the garage. Doesn't matter where you have a medical emergency, but a gurney needs to be able to get you out of the building and into an ambulance. And that's how the code is written for life safety purposes.
A follow-up on that, Dave? Do I need to open your mic again? All right, I unmuted your mic, Dave.
Yeah, well, this kind of goes against another project that we recently had presented to us. I think it was just a couple months ago, and that was the elevator going up to the roof on Endicott Street, the new building on Endicott near Commercial Street. And they had to get approval to build that elevator up to the top of the roof. So if they had to get approval, why did they have to get approval if it's something that's required by the code? I still believe it's not required by the code and that it does not have to go up to the level of the roof.
In the north end, there's a requirement, I believe it's under 5418, the same section article, that you can only have 10% of a penthouse. Well, the penthouse can only be 10% of the total roof area. And if you go above that 10%, it counts as an additional floor. And so that's probably what I'm just speculating why that project you're citing may have gone for approval, as they were probably over the 10%. I'm just speculating. Our project is under the 10%, so we are not in violation of that.
And that's, I think, a very important subject, is that we have not been cited for any issues regarding the elevator, the head house, the roof. None of it. It's all compliant with zoning.
Dave, you good?
Well, compliant with zoning does not mean it's required.
David, I'm sorry. It looks like we just have a difference of opinion here, but I'm sorry.
Okay, there's a bunch of people with hands up, so I'm just gonna run through, and I have one question in chat. So Trish has had her hand up for a really long time. Trish, I'm unmuting your mic. You got it? Okay, please tell us where you live and your name.
Thank you very much. This is Trish O'Hare. I'm at 232 Commercial Street, right across the street, 2R. And I have two questions. One, as a direct abutter, I don't understand why I don't get any notifications about this development. I have to sort of find them out. My second, so that's one question. The second question is, I wonder if there's been any sort of study on the impact of the traffic. I, like many people, have been knocked down in that intersection and very badly injured. I have a neighbor who was knocked down in the one behind the building. The traffic is very, very dangerous at this intersection, and you only need to spend about 10 minutes looking out to see it. And I'm wondering if there's been any safety study to see the impact of the traffic. Thank you.
I just want to answer first the question about the notices. We have not, we don't have a date for zoning at which, you would be notified by the city. The only thing we've done to date is we've had community meetings, which I think have been pretty well publicized, but it was all done by flyering and mailings and things of that nature. I know the mayor's office held its abutters meeting, and we were required to notice a 300-foot area. I presume you may well have been within that. And
I did not know. I didn't get no.
That meeting was probably 2 weeks ago now. But in any event, we've other than that, we've had the neighborhood council meeting, which we were required to notify. We had this meeting and the first NEWRA meeting, zoning, which we were required to notify, all of which we did. And we had the mayor's office abutters meeting, which we were required to notify, and we did. We took photos, kept records of every place that was notified and dropped. And I mean, I just would have to apologize if you, for some reason, didn't get one, but we notified everyone we were required to notify on all those occasions. I will tell you that the difference is with this notification for Board of Appeal, it comes from the city. But we don't have a date. We don't have a date for that. So you just, obviously you'll get something in the future when that's scheduled.
Thank you.
Howard,
I was going to bring up a couple points on the traffic real quick.
On the safety,
yeah. And I'm sorry to hear of the incident. Just a couple things is, as we kind of alluded to earlier, the project has a couple benefits from the pedestrian realm standpoint. And I'm just going to come to mind that this is a replacement of a formerly somewhat busy commercial outlet. It was a dry cleaning outpost where people would pick up and drop off their dry cleaning. And there were a couple large curb cuts that were on Atlantic Avenue. This project is going to eliminate those curb cuts and thus removing the traffic that used to cross the sidewalk on Atlantic, entering and exiting at that location. We're also reducing dramatically the curb cuts that are on Commercial Street that would allow for a more continuous pedestrian street realm. The intersection is a stop condition. So when you're traveling north on Commercial, you see 2 stop signs as you approach Atlantic. A project this size wouldn't have to do a full-blown traffic study, but there's a significant amount of improvements just through the removal of curb cuts. And that kind of puts the pedestrians in control of that entire frontage on Atlantic Avenue, where before there were 2 very large and busy curb cuts.
Okay. Tim Finley, I'm going to open your mic. There you go.
Hi, this is actually Cindy Finley.
Okay, Cindy.
Of Tim and Cindy. We are at 220 Commercial Street, and I had a few questions. One of them being, again, the penthouse on the roof. If it's under 50 people, do you really need 2 means of egress, which I imagine there would be less than 50 people on the roof deck? And I believe, from my understanding of what I've read in 5418, the access to the roof decks in the north end is only 30 inches is allowable over the height of the roof deck. So that's one question. I have a question about the projecting bays. I believe you mentioned that they were also, you needed a relief on that. And I'm just wondering what the process is for you getting relief on the projecting bays and the tree that you have removed from Commercial Street. Will that be replaced?
I'm gonna take, if I can, in reverse order. All the trees, any tree removed has to be replaced. We must go to the Parks Department for approval of tree plantings, of which we will certainly be doing. There'll be more trees planted on the property, which have to be approved by the Parks Department. It's also part of the BPDA design review, so we have permissions to be sought, if you will, in that regard. But there will be replacement trees, much more green than it is today. I'm sorry, what was the other? Oh, go ahead. I'm forgetting.
The projecting bays.
Oh, the
how
bays.
do
Yep.
you-
Yes. Gotcha. So the city, there's the Public Improvement Commission is a city agency which is responsible to authorize any use of the public way, whether it be air in the case of a projecting bay like this, or underground, or awnings above and things of that nature. So any encroachment, if you will, into the public air has to go through the Public Improvement Commission, and people in the position of a developer have to pay the city for the right to do that. So there will be a separate procedure at the Public Improvement Commission for the projecting bays. I don't know whether we have any other issues, but it's definitely a city regulated process, and the developer has to pay for the right to occupy that space, if you will.
Okay,
And I
and
think there
then
was a question about the elevator again.
yes, it was, do you really require it both stairs? And I believe that the zoning, and my understanding was a maximum height of 30 inches of head house to access any roof deck. And I forgot to mention also, I was curious about the setback because it does require setbacks. And it looks like you're going straight up the Commercial Street side without any setback.
Again, setbacks on the roof?
On the roof structure, yes.
Roof structure. Matt, are you still there with us?
Yeah. So setbacks are only required off of streets that are larger than 20 feet. So Commercial Street being a one-way street doesn't qualify. But we do have setbacks, and the setback requirement is 1 foot of height for every foot off the face of the building. And so actually, even though we're not required to have setbacks off of Commercial Street, we do indeed have a setback.
But can you show the stair access, because that does not appear to be set back? And that's the tallest part of your roof structure.
Yes, but the stair, you're talking about, well, I believe what you're referencing is the roof deck itself. The stair doesn't have the same setback requirement. So, and also, I'm not sure where you got the 30 inches from. I'd be curious to hear where you see that. There is a stipulation that the deck of the roof deck can't be more than 12 inches over the height of the roof. But I don't know of a 30-inch requirement.
I'll double check that. I believe I read it in the zoning.
It's right in 5418. So if you find something that I didn't.
Can you just swing back around to the stair? I just want to get a closer look at that going straight up. And why does the stair get relief from the setback?
Again, I think it's and it's been a while since I looked at that exact zoning requirement, but I believe it's because it's on a secondary street and it's less than 20 feet. So you don't have the setback requirements that you do off Atlantic Avenue.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to go right down the list with people who have their hands up. Lori Lilly, I'm unmuting you. Lori. There you go.
Richard Walsh, how many parking spaces are in this building?
6.
6. And where will the trash be? Where will the trash containers be?
It'll be they'll all be inside the building. We looked at a couple of locations, but they'll be on that ground floor inside the building. And then
And will they be on rollers or will they be compacted?
no, they'll be on rollers. That's how we're planning it right now.
Okay, so that's a challenge because of rodents and because of noise in the north end, but that's that. 6 units, 3 bedroom per unit. How many cars do you anticipate to be involved with this building?
I'm not sure I understand that question. It's one car per unit. It's total 6 cars. Is that?
Okay, and the other cars will go,
What other cars?
well, I'm sure, I know my husband and I and most people that I know have more than 1 car per family. So I'm just curious about that. And the third most important thing, I don't think there are many buildings in the north end that are 5 stories high, which you've shown the ones that are 5 stories high. But what's the distance between building to building across that street versus the Prince Building to 25 Atlantic Avenue, the distance there of 50 feet?
Yeah, what's the question then?
The question is the buildings that are 5 feet tall, or I'm sorry, 5 stories high in the north end that you showed us. What is the distance? Most of them are on a 2 street. They're surrounded by 2 streets. This is not. There's not a street between the entrance to the garage of the Prince Building versus the entrance to the garage of 25 Atlantic Avenue. So I'm just curious to see what is the normal distance in the north end compared to what you're asking us to do. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm 63 Atlantic Avenue, 11C.
Yeah, Howard, can you help me on that?
So a couple things, and I'm going to try to answer the question and see if we get it right. But if Matt, if you can go to your elevation view, that shows the building, and this is a good example because there's a bunch of 5-story buildings that are right on the block, the 200 block of commercials, say, right there. And if Matt's looking at the top elevation, you can see the buildings at the corner of Commercial and Fleet and Atlantic right there. They're generally all of 5 stories, and they have 0 foot setbacks, side yard.
But Howard, they don't have 2 different buildings entering the same.
So I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep trying. So get that. So then when you look at this space and just in it from a vehicular circulation standpoint, you have a shared easement driveway to the Prince Building, the large building shown on the plan, and the 25 Atlantic, which is going to have a couple garages off it. You're almost at the not at a public street volume, and you're have a distance here that's like a drive aisle in a commercial parking lot. So it's a fairly good distance for vehicular circulation. I think the distance from building to building is around 27 feet, Matt, is that the number?
Yes.
And with the ability for a car to back out, just like a commercial parking space. It's not sized for a public street. because when we're looking at public streets, you're dealing with more than just vehicular traffic. Normally, you're also looking at fire department access and things of that nature. So this driveway just needs to function like a commercial driveway, and it's got the sufficient width for that.
So will deliveries, will servicemen, Amazon, where will they come? Will they come into that driveway, or will that just be designated for residents of both buildings?
So I would love to be able to say anyone could control Amazon deliveries and what they do, because they just do what they want to do. And, you know, it's like that UPS truck who's got the stack of parking stickers on their they're under their windshield wiper. I think what we're looking at here is that with that easement having a sufficient width, even if a small vehicle chose to go there, it would allow for a normal sized passenger vehicle passage around it. And when we're looking at the trash kind of pickup, when you think in terms of those plastic roll-offs that most people use, you know, they'll only be dwelling for a small amount of time, and their width is not ginormous. They're not very large and wide vehicles. So that's scaled so vehicles could pass side by side, like a kind of like I think a drive aisle in a commercial parking lot. It's probably wider than the Sargent Street parking aisles, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I have to say that I definitely oppose this project, because 5 stories in that space is just, in my opinion, in our opinion, won't work. And I always expected something to happen, and 3 stories might make sense, but 5 stories absolutely does not for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next person, like I said, I'm just going down the line of people with their hands up. B. Sullivan, I'm opening your microphone. Can you just give us your name and tell us where you live?
Yes, good evening. My name's Brendan Sullivan. I live at 220 Commercial Street, apartment 5C. I actually have 2 questions, and this is my first time through a meeting. I know this project proposal has been in front of various folks for a period of years here. But my first question is, what is the plot line, or the actual land area that you own? Is there a map, an aerial maybe, that shows that? What I'm getting at is, what area here, what percentage of the sidewalk is actually public versus land that you own? Okay, so I think you referenced before the sidewalk was 20 feet wide on the Atlantic Street side.
Yep.
Is that right? So what percentage of that sidewalk do you actually own?
None of it.
Okay. So the second piece of my question, and maybe this has been brought up in prior meetings, is does this project need to abide by Chapter 91? It's my understanding that there's to be provided public land or access as a percentage. I think it's 15% of your parcel has to be available to the public. So I was just curious how that works for this proposal.
Howard, are you?
Yeah, I just
was jump in.
I was waiting to see if he was going to finish and then chip in. So this project is subject to Chapter 91. And Chapter 91 does have an open space requirement. And in discussions with the DEP waterways regulators, there's 2 mechanisms that are going to be used to satisfy the open space. And the one that was most encouraging to the waterway staff was the opening up to public access of the corridor between the Prince Building, the large building to the left, and 25 Atlantic. And that corridor opening up views from Commercial to the waterfront, which Matt showed before, and allowing public to formally access through that property was a huge benefit. And the other mechanism to satisfy the open space requirement is this project is going to assume custody and care of the sidewalks around the perimeter in perpetuity, and enter a license and maintenance and indemnification agreement with the City of Boston, thus demonstrating that that sidewalk will be preserved as the requisite open space to satisfy the waterways regulations.
So in essence, you've formed an agreement to own the sidewalk to accommodate that public usage?
To take care of it, almost like an owner, but not with the underlying fee ownership of the sidewalk. So there'll be no transfer of fee. It'll just be the maintenance obligations associated with normal ownership.
Okay, I'm certainly not a lawyer, but it seems odd. I mean, I think the law says you have to own the lands. The second point that I just observed from your explanation is that I get the point that you're opening up that aisle, that look through the passageway between 63 Atlantic and your proposal. And while that's good, I think the real intended purpose is a drive aisle. So it's really kind of parking and driving. I wouldn't say that that's public usage is kind of the way I would think of it. So more of a statement, but thanks for your explanation there.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Jen Crampton, your hand's up. Putting your mic. There you go. You're open.
Thanks. Okay, so circling back to the units and the square footage, what are you looking at for pricing on those units?
I'm based on what I've gone through and how long this is taking, I'm going one step at a time. And I can easily answer your question, and you know the answer to it too. The market will determine that.
Okay. Well, I did some math myself, and if we're going to talk about this being a family development, just so everyone has context, let's pretend $1,500 a square foot, because I think you probably want to be at least at that range. That's probably on the low end, based on conversations that we've had in the past. So for the 1,800 square foot units, you'd be talking about $2.7 million. And for the 2,300 square foot units, you'd be talking about $3.45 million. So anyone, who's here to like, rah, this is a family development, 3 bedrooms, lovely, but I don't know a lot of families that can drop, 2.7 to 3.45 million on their 3-bedroom city apartment. I know we couldn't. We're lucky enough to be in the Prince building, but there's no way that most families I know could swing that. So I just wanted to ask you that question and hope that you would have answered it, because I don't know many developers who go ahead and try to build a building like this without knowing how much the unit's going to cost. So I did go ahead and do that math because I knew that you might not answer. And
I don't have an answer. I don't. I'm not hiding an answer from you. I don't. I'm trying to build my home is what I tried to do. I built a building that I think is beautiful, and it's within the zoning parameters of the North End waterfront. I'm not, it's just, I'm so one step at a time. I haven't even got to that. I haven't got to that. And I'm not a developer, but you guys don't like when I say that.
Okay, I have more to say once we get to comments, but I'll hold that for if anyone else has questions first.
Yeah, we got a couple more questions, so hang on, Jen. Eva Jean, I'm opening your mic. Eva Jean Mintz. There you go.
Hi. I'm a little worried about this passageway, and I was first wondering, compared to the existing width, how much wider are you making the passageway?
Matt, you want to take that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question. Let me see. So the existing, I want to answer your question exactly, meaning as it is today. And
it's a little hard to hear you. I think I'm trying to determine what the existing passageway is, say to the fence you put up, which I'm not sure whether our easement, you're not encroaching on our easement with the fence, but say the fence is there and, I'm at 63 Atlantic Avenue, apartment 10E. from the existing fence to our driveway door, to our parking garage entry door, how wide is that currently?
I don't know.
I don't
know.
It's a good question, and I'm sorry, I don't have that information. I don't know where the fence is in relation to your garage.
That's very surprising, since you're building a whole building and you're a builder.
No,
Okay, I can say, then I would like to say, since it's not a question, only one car can pass that driveway currently, because the air conditioning of our building juts out. And even if it didn't, I don't think two cars could pass. And there's only room for one car to park near the fire escape from our building. So I don't understand how you could bring construction materials to the building without totally blocking the entire passageway to our garage and preventing 40 units from using that passageway. Also, I would like to ask you, what do you intend to do about the pedestrian traffic that now presents a great danger to everybody pulling out of the garage of the Prince Building, because people are reading their cell phones, walking their dogs, and paying absolutely no attention to the existing garage door. And you would be multiplying one garage door and making 3 garage doors and exits out to the passageway. How do you intend, since you own that land, to protect the pedestrians walking through that land constantly? I almost never pull out of the garage without encountering a pedestrian.
Okay, go ahead. Can I get a response, please?
Let me jump in if I could. This is Attorney Chris Muse. Hello, Ms. Mintz. The easement that you presently have is a 10-foot wide swath that goes from Commercial Street up to the beginning of your garage. And I'll leave the architects and others to explain, and the engineers to explain some of the pitfalls that you anticipate for pedestrian traffic, but it will be enhanced from 10 feet to 27 feet so that there will be obviously better access and egress for you folks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have quite a few more questions. iPhone, there's no name on this person. I'm just opening your mic. iPhone, you have your hand up?
One statement, Mrs. Mintz.
Go ahead.
One of us just ran out there, and to answer your question, it's 15 feet to the temporary fence. So we are going to increase that greatly. But we just ran out there and did it for you.
Okay. iPhone, somebody who is here, iPhone, there's no name on it. You have your hand up? There you go. Can you please identify yourself and tell us where you live?
Am I on?
Yes, you are. Please tell us your name and where you live.
It's Ann Devlin Taliaferro.
Hi, Ann.
How are you? I'm in the Prince Building.
Yeah.
In my apartment 4D. And I just wanted to question, there's many questions, but this is a common roof deck. I'm not sure, but when I was on the council, that was actually, it was against, nobody had a common roof deck. Has that policy changed?
Oh, I don't know what the council policy is, but the common roof deck is part of our zoning application. It was allowed. It's an allowed use.
Well, I guess they must have changed the rules. I don't know, but when I was on the council, they didn't allow it. Are you aware, actually, you said you're going to be an owner occupied. Are you aware that actually with this Airbnb would be allowed in your building if there's an owner occupied?
Richard?
What's the question?
The question is, are you going to do short-term rentals in the building?
No, absolutely not.
At the outset.
Absolutely not.
you have no choice on that. If you're gonna have any resident or any owner, they can do what they want. As long as the building is owner occupied.
Condo documents, I'll restrict it.
Yeah,
Nope.
you can restrict it with condo documents. so it's not the building that do that.
Mrs. Devlin, I'm as interested as you are on that one, believe me.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to keep moving because it's getting late and there are a lot of people that still have questions. Chris Tewitt, you had another question. I'm just trying to go in order. I'm unmuting you. And then next up, John Ketchum, Richard Jacobs, Cynthia Mom. You're up, Chris.
Thank you. Actually, I have a few questions, but I'll quickly list them off. How are you increasing parking spaces on Commercial Street?
I'd like to answer that one, Chris, if possible, because I think there's a little confusion. I'm looking at the chat. Under existing conditions, there are 2 curb cuts on Commercial Street. Those curb cuts total about 80 linear feet. And given there's some temporary fencing on the site, one of those curb cuts is essentially closed. Under the proposed condition, there are going to be just under 50 feet of curb cut, thus freeing up that 30 feet of curb cut to permanently restore some on-street parking. So what's out there now is essentially temporary resident parking in front of a permitted curb cut.
Right.
Hopefully that helps clear up some of the dimensional confusion.
Yeah, well, what's the length you're considering for a parking space on the street?
So, well,
I mean,
It's city regulations.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important if you're claiming to increase the parking on the street, there should be some guidelines as to how many cars can park on the street after you put in your garage. And you're increasing it. There has to be. You've got to have done some study to say you're going to add additional parking to the street.
So as I mentioned, we're creating 30 feet of non-curb cut frontage along that in that Commercial Street side, which is going to allow the resident parking to be in that what is now a non-curb cut area. So that's where you get the increase.
Okay. The other question I have is regarding Brendan's question from 220 Commercial Street, the public access. I believe you say that is the space between Commercial Street and Atlantic Avenue. Is that correct? The public access space?
And the sidewalks.
Right. So if I'm looking at the buildings that or the rendering that you have up on the screen now, I think someone mentioned that it's opening up the space between the 2 buildings and increasing the view. Who's benefiting from that public space and the view? Because I'm not quite sure that the public access space is beneficial to any of the abutters other than the developer at 210 Commercial Street.
The eye of the beholder in this case is the Chapter 91 regulators. And this is a perfectly appropriate mechanism to provide the public space for purposes of Chapter 91.
Okay, my other question is, you have on your, first of all, I was never notified of these meetings either. I agree with Trish from 230 Commercial Street or 236. But I got the plans late this afternoon, and you do have a loading zone on your plans, which is in that public access space between Commercial and Atlantic. Is that correct?
Matt?
Yes. Yes, that's correct.
So back to Mrs. Mintz. Her question is, if there is a vehicle, especially a construction vehicle or delivery vehicle in a loading zone, what does that do to the space between the Prince Building and your proposed building there at Commercial Street?
People are going to have to, as with every other neighborhood in the city, people are going to have to accommodate other vehicles that come and go from spaces that are accessible, in this case, to 2 buildings, and will include a pedestrian passageway in the middle. I mean,
So regarding the deliveries,
there's nothing else we can tell you. If there's a truck there unloading, you're going to wait till a truck moves, and then you're going to move into your space. There's nothing else you can do.
okay, so I'm coming home from work to the Prince Building, and I have to wait till a truck finishes its deliveries before I can pull into the Prince Building?
Perhaps, as I do in the alleyway behind my house where my parking spaces, where other people do.
With all due respect, sir, we're not discussing where you live.
Okay, all right, Chris, ready? Chris.
No, listen,
Well, I just want to tell you,
Let's let Chris finish. Let him finish.
all right,
his statement,
okay, good,
please.
good.
these are legitimate questions. Okay, you're absolutely destroying light and air and property values from your butters. Okay, and these questions are absolutely legitimate questions.
They are. I'm trying to answer them, sir. I could lie to you and tell you you'll never have a truck.
I know, but sir,
in your way.
Where you live and what you do on a daily basis has no bearing on the people that live at the Prince Building, that share a common easement to pull into their parking space, and to think that they need to wait for a delivery truck to move is unconscionable.
It's just a
Let
fact
me
of life,
jump in a
sir.
little bit, Dennis, if it's okay.
Chris, please, mute.
Yeah, well, Chris, long time, haven't seen you for a long time. The easement issue requires just a little bit of bullet points. That 27 feet of width is owned by Richard Walsh. There is a 10-foot swath presently from Commercial Street up to the garage point of the Prince Building that is a deeded easement for their use, for egress and ingress and nothing else. There can be no restrictions, unreasonable restrictions on that. The point that you're bringing up, Chris, that I think that Dennis was trying to say in a very common sense way, is that there will be delivery trucks that will be bringing products probably to the Prince Building that will probably momentarily inconvenience some of the people at 25 Atlantic. I think that's the point that's being made. With regard to the loading space, that is a required area to be designated, and I think Matt has already referenced that at earlier meetings. So from time to time, there will be use of that loading space, probably 2 or 3 times a week, probably in the early mornings, to remove trash. And probably, if necessary, when people are moving in or leaving the building. So there's going to be intermittent use. It's not going to be an unreasonable imposition either on the people on the Prince Building, or from time to time by the Prince people on 25 Atlantic. I hope that gives you a little bit of clarification.
Thanks, Chris. I haven't seen you in a long time either. Talk. Thank you. But I don't know if anybody's seen the Amazon trucks that deliver packages to various residents. They're not small vehicles, and they come and go multiple times a day. And I think it's just fair to discuss what the impact that will be on the people getting in and out of the Prince Building in their parking spaces.
Well,
All right, can I say something? Can I say something? Can I say something? Chris, to it. I see it all day, every day. There's gonna be no trucks in there at all. The Amazon trucks and the trash trucks sit out on Commercial. They're out there every day, all day, right around that corner on the backside of Commercial. The guy's gonna walk across and he's gonna get the trash. The Amazon, they park there every day, all day. There's effectively a loading zone on Commercial behind the Prince Building. And they even go in front of the fire hydrants in front of my office. I think we have the right to even go in there infrequently, but I'm just telling you, we're not even gonna even go in there. There's not even gonna be a truck there.
Then why is there a loading zone on your plan?
Because that's where we're just gonna bring the trash to, so he knows where to walk to get it. We don't wanna put the trash out in the street.
So it's not a loading zone, it's a trash zone.
It's a loading zone per zoning requires a loading zone designated on the site.
So the condo documents, I'm assuming, will then restrict any loading type vehicles from coming on site.
I think, Chris, and I don't want to repeat inaccurately what was said before, there has to be a designation of a loading zone. The more important question for everyone's interest will be, what will be the impact of it? And I've already indicated that it's going to be very, very limited. And indeed, when you talk about the trucks, that if they become a nuisance, then then apparently, if there's an issue about any kind of nuisance generated either on behalf of deliveries to the Prince Building or to 25 Atlantic, it'll be remedied. It'll be a day-to-day kind of occurrence in terms of any kind of policing that needs to be done. But the loading zone designation, and Matt can correct me if I'm wrong, was required to be placed for purposes of zoning. And that's where they will be able to use it from time to time. There will be no unreasonable interruption. And with regard, and let me say further, if there was an unreasonable interruption of the use of the easement by anyone with regard to 63 Atlantic, then there's a separate enforcement vehicle for that. So hopefully the parties will avoid conflict and make sure that they don't have to go to court on a nuisance action, which won't happen. So there's an enforcement on it. The people at 63 Atlantic have an absolute right to the continued reasonable use of their easement. And it's a matter that can be enforced. And it's not going to be something that's going to be invited by the Walsh people or anyone else. So it's a good point to raise, Chris, but I hope the answer I'm giving you will satisfy any apprehension you might have on behalf of the people that are presently parking in the Prince Building.
Well, my concerns are not only the Prince Building, but where my office is at my space at 220 Commercial Street. And so I just want to make sure that what you're saying is, in order for you to get relief or to get this project approved, you have to say you have a loading zone, but in fact, it's not a loading zone, and there's some sort of policing that will happen in the event that it becomes a problem.
No, I'll go backwards. Prince Building has a 10-foot swath of property rights to be able to pass to and fro from Commercial Street. That will not be impeded unreasonably. And if it is, then there's recourse. So all I can tell you is that people that are neighbors will try very much to make sure that they accommodate each other within the law. And so that easement of 10 feet is going to be preserved for their use. It's not going to be unreasonably interfered with. That's the best that we can do. The designation of a loading zone, there's another 17 feet that's within that separated throughway. So it's intermittent use.
Okay, I appreciate your opinion. Thank you very much for answering the question, Chris.
Okay, thank you, Chris. And Chris, Michael, Mom, I'm going to open your mic. You have a question, and then we're going to move to comments because it's 9 o'clock. Michael, Cynthia, you have to click.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, we
Yeah,
can.
I'm sorry, I have a few questions, but I'll make them quick.
Thank you.
I've been to 4 different meetings. This is the first time we've seen a shadow study. How about studies for the views? Have you developed any of those?
No, I don't think there's been a view study as such.
Okay, well, that's one of the criteria for 5418 you're well aware of, so we would hope that you would have that. I noticed that Richard's view remains unimpeded, but it's the people in the Howland Bridge and the 63 Atlantic Avenue where I live have been impinged upon. Now, did you, I've been hearing Chris Muse talk about a 10-foot easement. There's no such 10-foot easement. It's a 20-foot easement. And I wonder if you read the easement where it says to be free and unobstructed at all times, and whether you showed this to the Inspectional Service Department when you went to get the approvals for the zoning.
My understanding, my read of the easement, I have the file someplace, but I'll never find it, so I'll just use my memory. It's a 10-foot designated swath for ingress and egress. Now, if you have something else, then this is a good time to correct me.
I'll do it. I'll do it right now. It's 20 foot wide, and it says that there's be no parking. So you couldn't have a delivery truck parked there. And it's free and unobstructed at all times.
What is the date of the easement? I think that the property titles that I was looking at had there's an agreement. Do you mind telling me what the date of the agreement for the easement was between the original owner of the Sun Oil Company and the Prince Macaroni Building?
It was back in the 60s.
Well, again, I'm not going to say that you're right and I'm wrong, but I think that there's a disagreement. I'd love to be able to look at it. Maybe you could send it to us later on.
Okay, well, I don't want to belabor it, but that's the case, and it has to be kept free and unobstructed at all times. So you can't put a loading zone in there. Now you don't have to have a loading zone if you didn't try and take up every square foot and have it such a massive building. So I'll give you a little tip. You could reduce the building size so you wouldn't have to have that. I have a couple other questions. Have you spoken with the DEP and asked if they have a policy with respect to allowing the 50% of open space requirements on your property to incorporate city land that Richard Walsh does not own?
Howard?
Yes.
And the answer is yes. The Chapter 91 consultant has already met with DEP Waterways representatives about the strategy.
I understand that, and there was a conversation, but there is no policy. And so what I would suggest to anybody who lives in the North End waterfront, that this would set a precedent that would be terrible for the rest of the North End. If they were to establish a policy through this property of allowing the sidewalks to comprise of 50% open space where there's hardly any open space here. So, and then I would, well, I'll save my comments for later.
Okay, so I know there's a couple of people who just private texted me. They have a couple of quick questions, and then I want to move to comments because it's 9 o'clock. John Ketchum, I'm going to open your mic, and then Richard Jacobson. I'm not sure if Richard has a question or a comment. So John Ketchum, just hang on. Let me find you in here. All right, John, I just tried to open your mic. You're up.
Hi, it's not John Ketchum. It's Adrian Dion, but it's my husband's computer. So
just tell us where you live, please.
I live at 220 Commercial Street, apartment 5B.
Yeah.
And I have a couple of questions, and one is being able to access the plans in full, and how I go about doing that. And my other question is, since there was a gas station there, is it were there gas tanks below the surface, and have those been removed? Does anybody know about that? And my third question, well, why don't you go ahead with those, and I'll follow up my last question.
Howard, can you answer the question about the remediation of the site?
So based on public records, we are under the understanding that tanks have been pulled when the gas station was abandoned. So there's not believed to be underground tanks from the.
But there's
prior
documentation for that?
It was on a DEP website. Yeah, I think the project's geotechnical engineer had unearthed that a while ago.
Okay. And how can I access the full plans and the ISD letter?
We can easily provide you a copy of the ISD, the refusal letter.
Yes, please. And
Yes.
And can I also access the plans? Is that something that I can access online? How it's filed with the city?
Presumably, I mean, Richard, excuse me again. Richard, on the plans?
Yeah, I'm just following the process that's been dictated to me by the agencies. I will make those plans available to you.
Why don't you put your email? Why don't you put your email in the chat, and they can email everything to you?
Okay.
Or the
I
link.
wanna-
I'm sure your stuff should be up at the with the city, the plans.
There was a comment that's been made several times about maybe our improper notification of people during these meetings. We received the abutters list from the Office of Neighborhood Services. We were very specific to follow that very closely when we set these notifications out. So if somebody didn't get them, I apologize for that, but we really very, very carefully.
Okay, so if people haven't gotten a notification, you should email John Romano, And John,
Yeah, I will. I never knew this. I didn't know this until tonight. We will do
Okay,
that.
hold on. I want to move this along. John,
Okay.
Ramon, can you put your email address in the chat so people who did not get notified can email you directly to make sure that they're on the list for any further notifications? What's your next question? Because we're
Okay,
gonna,
my last question is I fully appreciate, Richard, your desire to live in the North End and to have a family home. I believe you could do that without taking up every square foot of that lot, and it could certainly create a family home that isn't also 6 units. And have you considered a smaller building to be able to have your family home?
No, we just developed a building that was 100% compliant with the North End Waterfront zoning code.
But I believe your goal was to have a family home there.
Yes, yeah, that was the initial goal. That's right.
But now you're saying that you wanted to develop the property. So it's kind of a conflict.
Okay. Is there a question? I'm not sure.
Yes. My question is that I asked if you were really desirous of having a family home, if you'd consider having a smaller building.
We have not considered that, no.
Would you consider a smaller building?
Not at this point, no. I'm willing to continue to accept constructive feedback from all of you, and I will think about all of it. But at this point, no.
Okay, thank you for your answer.
Thank you.
thank you. Aaron, I just tried to open your mic. Aaron?
Can you hear me?
Yep, got you.
All right. My name is Aaron. I live at 236 Commercial Street, directly across as an abutter. I bought here about 4 years ago. I loved the neighborhood for the openness and the sunshine and everything. I've been following the past few meetings, and I believe that this current proposal would highly diminish the livelihoods of a lot of the abutters here, primarily from the height, because it blocks the views that many expected when they purchased here. Also the sunlight, the building would cast a shadow across all of the commercial street buildings, especially for the many residents that have very little sunlight anyways. And then the first floor of the building just being solid granite, it's not very inviting, and I think it'd darken up the commercial street area and kind of just make the neighborhood not as welcoming, I guess. So just wanted to voice my opinion there, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Richard Jacobs, I know you had a question or a comment, and then we're going to go to Kathy McDonald and Jen Crampton, because these are the people who are either putting their hands up, texting me, or direct messaging me. So Richard, I think your mic is open.
So it's Eileen Jacobs.
Yeah.
And Cheryl, if you would put up the on the screen share the photos that I sent you so that people can see what Aaron and others have talked about in terms of the impact on our views and air.
Okay. I'm going to need you guys to take your stuff down so I can put their pictures up. Thank you. Let's see.
So if we start with the first picture.
Yep. Hold on. I'm going to try it. Yeah. I got to open them. Hold on. I got to open them one at a time.
Yes.
Why don't you keep talking while I get this up?
So in the first picture that you'll see, which I took on December 27th, so 1 week after the winter solstice, there's the view of our building, Howe and Bainbridge building. My husband and I are on the 3rd floor. And you heard from Cindy, who's on the 2nd floor, and others who are on the 4th and 5th floors. We have a sunlit building. If you go to the next photo.
Okay, I got to open them one at a time. Sorry.
Okay.
It's not that easy. Hold on. I also do not want to disconnect everybody, so just everybody hang on. Keep talking, sorry, I'll get it up.
Okay.
So work
So
quickly. I don't want to disconnect the call.
Okay, the next picture is that.
There.
So the next picture is a view from my living room window. And you can see that I see the ocean. I see the chart house. I see Lewis Wharf. And when I bought this property, my husband and I bought this property 22 years ago, based on 5418, we had assurance, in effect, through the zoning code, that we would maintain this view. You can also see the sun. The sun shines directly into my unit and into all the units on 220 and 236 Commercial Street, which have this view. Cheryl, the next.
I'm going to do the next one. Hang on. Keep going. I don't want to disconnect. All right.
The Howe and Bainbridge building is 190 years old and is brick on the inside along with beam ceilings. The room would actually be pretty dark were it not for, you actually can't there. The room would actually be pretty dark were it not for the sun streaming in through our windows. This building that is being proposed will totally eliminate that sun. We will be looking at a wall. And 5418 said, we do not have to look at a wall. And I see no reason whatsoever why Mr. Walsh, who purchased the land 5 years ago, should have precedence over my unit and the other people who live in my building, who would have a serious impact on the quality of our life and on the value of our property.
Next picture? Or is that it?
That's it. That'll be fine.
Got
So
it.
I strongly object and hope that my neighbors in the North End will join me in objecting to the proposal that Richard Walsh has made, which is driven by his need to have an investment that yields some return, given how much he paid for the property, which I'm sorry, perhaps you overpaid for the property, but that doesn't mean you should have a building that blocks the light, the view, and the air from the rest of us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe my husband also wanted to make a comment.
Okay, all right. Because then
No.
Kathy McDonald is up next.
Okay, never mind.
Okay, Kathy, I'm trying to unmute your mic. There you go. You're up.
Gotcha. Hi. Thanks. My name's Kathy McDonald. I live in the Prince Building at 63 Atlantic Ave. I have just two brief comments to make. Number one, since the roof is not habitable space, it sounds like there is no requirement for the elevator to go up to the roof. You want it to go to the roof, but it isn't a requirement. So that would be an easy thing to get rid of. Secondly, going back to the loading zone, I notice in all of your renderings, none of them show the loading zone. I guess you don't want us to see that. Your loading zone absolutely violates our easement agreement, which says, and I'll quote, said easement area is not to be used for the parking of vehicles and is to be kept free and unobstructed at all times. We have 38 cars that park in the Prince Building using that driveway. Your cars using the driveway and your loading zone will cause a great inconvenience to our residents. The fact that your project requires a loading zone because you have over 15,000 square feet, that's not our problem. As Michael Mom said earlier, you can get rid of the need for the loading zone by making your building smaller. So that's something else you can work on with your plan. We have an easement that you would be violating with this loading area, and that's a fact, okay? I'm opposed to this project, and I hope that everyone else who votes will be opposed to this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Jen Crampton, you're up again. And then Peter, you'll be next, and Lindsay.
Hi, I'm going to run through quick because it's getting late. I'm at 63 Atlantic on Unit 4E, which is on the north end of the building. Just for context, because I know our building gets thrown under the bus for its size here and there. Our building was built in 1917. It was a factory first, and it was lovingly converted into residences during the 60s and 70s. We've all, we love the building. We work hard on keeping it nice and keeping it going, and also really enjoy living there. The proposed project will block light, air, and views from all of the windows on the north side of our unit. We'll have a loss of privacy. There's windows that would look directly into our bathroom, our bedroom, the kitchen window where I spend most of my days looking out that window would all be, experiencing a serious loss of privacy, light, air, and views. The massing of the project is inappropriately sized for the site. And I think there are safety concerns that should be addressed, which have already been raised tonight, but the open, quote unquote, open space between the two buildings is already used to drive in and out 38 cars. Adding 3 or 4 cars on that side that'll be using the driveway plus a loading zone, that's a concern for safety. And then also along Commercial Street, adding the driveways to get into those parking spaces will make that stretch of sidewalk pretty dangerous. That's one of the routes that we take to bring our kids to school, and we'd have to kind of rethink that if there's going to be cars driving back and forth over that sidewalk. The proposed project is going to devalue, in my opinion, units in the area. At a time when every morning I wake up and I get my Zillow notifications, and just in the past 2 days, there have probably been, 20 some odd units coming on the market. People are taking a flight from the city with the pandemic, and the economy is obviously not great. And then we're getting this thrown at us. This is not good. And then I already raised the point earlier about the likely per unit price of these units being pretty significantly high and more on the luxury end of things, and probably not truly appropriate for quote unquote local families. So those are my comments, and I'm looking forward to hearing from others, other butters as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Jen. Peter Godecki, I am unmuting you. And then Richard Jacobs and Tim Finley.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Not if you can, please.
We can hear you. You're all set.
right. That's great. I probably have a relatively unique perspective here in a lot of ways. First of all, I am a zoning professional in a sense, in as much as I have been vice chair for about a dozen years until last year when I moved here full time. Of a zoning board. Secondly, I've lived here for many days every week since, 21 years ago. And thirdly, I was you, Richard's father's friend and neighbor in Cohasset, 3 doors away. So I have a lot of perspective to bear on this situation. As a zoning professional, I do understand your right to appeal under the 5418 article. But the zoning board doesn't have to find that just because other buildings in the North End or on the waterfront or elsewhere, well, it'd just be 5418 in the North End, are not substantially detrimental, that this one wouldn't be substantially detrimental, as it clearly would, given the effect on light and air and views. And views are not protected in most zoning situations, but they are protected here. Oh, I should have mentioned, I live at 220 Commercial Street, and I'm on Unit 5A. The views at the Howe and Bainbridge Building, 220, would be decimated by this project. Light and air would be substantially affected. I also find it very interesting that you're talking about actually living in your proposed building, given what you have been up to in Cohasset, you or your straw, in terms of redeveloping the site of your parents' former domicile. And by the way, your dad was a wonderful man and a friend. That's really neither here nor there.
No, but I
This
sold-
proposal, let me
I-
finish.
Okay, I
Let me
sold that
finish, and
property.
then you
Okay.
did
okay.
sell it. You did
Yes,
sell it.
yes, yes.
I understand that you sold it. I'm not sure that, well, never mind. And
right.
that's not really germane to this.
Okay.
What,
okay.
what is germane is what you would be doing to this neighborhood in terms of a one-lane street that is narrower than the rest of Commercial Street, with 2 lanes of parking on both sides, and then building a wall 50 feet away, barely 50 feet away, in the face of all of the property from your building, around to 236 and probably 240. So in sum, I find this project repugnant. And I also believe that in the spirit of 5418, which requires consideration of not just light and air, but views, that it is a true distortion of the spirit and letter of 5418. You may or may not be able to get it through the ZBA here, but in terms of what you propose to do, it is absolutely inappropriate. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And Richard Jacobs, I'm going to open your mic.
Yes, and it is Richard Jacobs, 220 Commercial Street.
Thank you.
And as Eileen mentioned, we have lived there for 22 years.
Yeah.
First of all, I find it mildly insulting to refer to the roof deck as a park, unless we're going to have public access to it, Richard. But more importantly, I wanted to basically back up Jennifer's comment about the cost per square foot. I don't know how you could possibly not have figured out what it's going to cost you to get out of this building, of this project alive, if you actually build it, which I certainly hope you don't. What you are suggesting here is exactly what the North End doesn't need more of, and that is unaffordable housing. That's what is being introduced here. If you'd like to move into the North End, I suspect that there are lots of places that are available that would meet your needs. And Jennifer, you get Zillow every day. I suspect that you could share some of them with Richard so he could find something. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lindsay, I'm going to unmute you. Lindsay Small, tell us where you live, please.
Hi, this is Lindsay. I live at 271 North Street, number 5, which means I'm on the 5th floor. And just want to reconfirm, I've lived in this unit for 17 years, and being on the 5th floor, and my building is actually on the map that shows the building across the street from me is 50 feet. My bedroom and bathroom are on North Street. So I personally have the experience for the past 10 plus years of being very close to my neighbors. And it is and I know I choose to live here, but personally it is very invasive. And, you know, my shades are shut most of the day because of privacy, particularly it's my bedroom and bathroom. So I personally have experienced the close proximity of being close to others. And, you know, given the opportunity, I wouldn't want that for my neighbors that are just on the backside of my building. So for that reason, I wouldn't suggest that this project goes through.
Thank you. Tim Finley, I'm opening your mic.
Hello, this is Tim Finley. We are new owners at 220 Unit 2, and I won't belabor the points that are already excellently made by the fellow abutters and neighbors in the 220 building. I just wanted to say that I strongly oppose this project, and I think that our light, airs, and views will be strongly impacted.
Cindy Finley, I agree with everything everyone has said about the issues with light, air, and views. And I believe that this project is just too big for the site, and it's very imposing on such a site. Thank you.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you very much. Okay, next person up, Brian Mulcairn. I'm trying to open your mic, Brian, and can you tell us where you live, please?
Yeah, Cheryl, I'm actually a business owner in the Lewis Wharf building, and I'm wondering, do I have the ability to comment or no?
Well, you know, I've opened your mic. Do you own your real estate or do you work there?
No, I own the business.
You own your real estate or do you?
We own the business. We lease the space off of an individual.
You know, if you want to make it very brief, please. But honestly, it really is for people who live here and
Sure. So my employees use that walkway every single day to go to lunch, grab breakfast at the Golden Goose. And if anything, it's a real hazard today. People earlier talked about that no one's ever parked there. You're not allowed to park there. There's always maintenance vans for the Prince building in that area where people get stuck between the maintenance truck and the fire escape. So I think anything they could do to improve that area would be great for the area and for all my employees who use that every single day. So thank you, Cheryl.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else, Ann Moritz, hold on, Ann, I'm looking for you and I'm going to open your mic. Ann, you got to click through. Oops, sorry, Ann. Ann, I'm trying to,
try again. Okay.
You got it.
The discord and understanding, Ann Moritz, 63 Atlantic Ave, the discord and understanding about the size and the preservation of the Prince building easement on your property is prohibitive to any approval that I could give at this time. That is all.
Does anyone else want to speak? Put it up in the chat, put your hand up. Anyone? I'm just kind of scrolling through here to look to see if there's anyone. Michael, I thought you wanted to speak again, Michael Mom. You said you had another, I thought you did. I'm trying to track everybody's comments, questions. If there are no other questions, I need a motion. So I'm gonna have to open a couple of Dave Kubiak, Jen Crampton, Mary Victor. Somebody please give me a motion.
I make a motion. This is Dave Kubiak from Cleveland Place. I make a motion that NEWRA members vote for or oppose to this project proposal, this appeal.
Thank you. I'm going to second it so that I don't have to try to open everybody's mics. So I'm going to put in the chat again, the email that you should send your vote to. It's newra.board@gmail.com. The Gmail address. Please send your vote and we'll tally them and we will let everyone know. Dave, can you repeat your the motion language? Someone just had a question. I don't know if you muted yourself.
Probably won't be the same. Are they ever the same? I make a motion that NEWRA members who are allowed to vote, I will add that, do vote either in support or in opposition of this proposed project.
Right, so when you email to newra.board@gmail.com, just say you are in favor or you are opposed to the project. We'll get a note out to everybody via the NEWRA email list sometime tomorrow. We'll tally these up probably in the morning because it's 9:30. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. For those of you who have not renewed your membership, please do so. Oh, I see we have another hand up. I'm sorry, Alyssa. I'm going to open your mic. Please renew your membership. You can do it online, although I will tell you that someone emailed me earlier or texted me earlier, said that the link was not working properly. We'll look into that. You can always mail a check the old fashioned way to our PO box, or you can do it through PayPal. We'll check that out. Alyssa, go ahead. Your mic's open.
Hi, everyone. Alyssa Tizano. I live at 160 Salem Street, lifelong resident. I am raising my children here. And I was just waiting for, I thought it was just a butters only. I was in support of this project. I understand people oppose with regards to their views. But, and I don't want to sound curt, but it's just kind of what happens in the North End. There is development and it's part of like change happens. I've lived here all my life. I've gone through this with my family on Hanover Street. I think it's an added and a great addition. It sounds like he's doing, it's going to be a beautiful building to have it three bedrooms. Like I said, I have 2 young boys and I chose to stay in this neighborhood. And I know a lot of families that chose to stay here because we have great schools and the convenience of working in the city and living in the city. Yes, I know prices are high, but I work in the Seaport, prices are the same. I just think it's a really nice building. And I think the alternative is an empty lot that's fairly not very attractive. And like I said, I walk by it often and it's a rundown spot. So I think what Mr. Walsh wants to do, it seems like a very nice deal. Excuse me.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight.
Everybody for joining.
And we are adjourned until our February meeting, which will be on February 11th. Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend. And
Thank
we'll
you.
get that out tomorrow and let everybody know about the vote, and we'll notify whoever we need to notify. Thank you.